Welcome to worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. Before too long, we will have gathered all the extra hours of sunlight and heat that one season can offer. Before too long, we'll have to say goodbye to summer, but not yet. Here together, suspended in this hour set apart, school is still out. Berries and peaches are still in season. We've spent this summer together remembering ourselves as students rather than teachers, as keepers of beginner's mind. As a community, we've been reflecting on relationships that require deep intention and courage, the kinds of relationships that transform how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. In the fullness and in the changing of seasons, let us find our way deeper still into the courageous connectedness that is our human calling. Welcome to this time of exploration, of opening ourselves further to the possibilities that lie ahead. Welcome members, welcome guests, welcome all.
Be open to the possibility of joy and hope. Here may we find the courage to make stronger the web that connects us all.
Welcome to today's service. We're honored to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you following the service. So that we might do so, if you are visiting, please raise your hand, keep it up. Members, please take note of guests seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place your completed card in an offering basket when they are passed later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. You'll find them along with offering envelopes on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them down your row now. Some returning visitors may be interested in hearing about how to become a member. If so, please talk with me, Kelly Greene, your membership coordinator. My contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
I had my welcome to the ones you've already heard from my colleagues. Thank you for being a part of this service. As you've already heard, we've been exploring the theme of open and willing, moving toward courageous connections all summer long, and that focus continues today. Following the service, step over and get coffee or tea, and come down and join us as soon as possible in the Bernstein room for a rare opportunity to hear a credo, to hear an adult say that to which she's giving her heart, an adult who has experienced this congregation as a child and as an adolescent and as a young adult and as a parent. Emily Katz will be offering a credo today, and join us downstairs as soon as you can following the service. Other opportunities on Thursday, a group will be addressing this theme out of their personal experiences, information in your order about that. And then next Sunday is our last Sunday in this theme and our last Sunday for one service at 10 o'clock. After next Sunday, we'll go back to 2 services at 9:15 and 11:15. So one more Sunday at 10, and then 9:15 and 11:15 thereafter. There are any number of ways for you to get involved in the life of this congregation. 2 are mentioned in your order that I want you to notice: that our discovery circles are reconvening and our new core groups are convening. Members, please take note of that information and express your interest in either group. We create a space in which we remind ourselves on a weekly basis to hold those in need with our love and in our prayers. And we join, aware that there are needs held so close to the heart that they are not articulated into this space. But many of us come into this space carrying burdens of concern for ourselves, for family members, for friends, for our community, for our nation, and for our world. Especially on this day, on this eve, we hold with concern public education and education in general. If you're a teacher, raise your hand, please. Keep it up. If you're otherwise directly involved in a school of some kind, would you join these who already have their hands raised? If you are a student going back to school, would you raise your hand? And if you are the parent of a student on the way back to school, would you raise your hand? What a momentous time this is. We hold you who teach, who lead. We hold you who are students. We hold all our families with love and in our prayers as we embark on another year of education.
A reading from the Tao Te Ching. The 30 spokes unite in the one wheel, but it is on the empty space for the axle that the use of the wheel depends. Clay is molded to make a pot, but it is where there is nothing that the usefulness of the pot lies. Cut out doors and windows to make a room, but it is in the spaces where there is nothing that the usefulness of the room lies. Therefore, benefit may derive from something, but it is in the nothing that we find usefulness.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out.
It's been almost 5 years since I transitioned from longtime member to staff member as the adult programming coordinator. You may know that I was born into a Unitarian family before the merge with the Universalists. I've come to appreciate the awe and humility that the Universalists brought to the mix. I have fond memories of Easter flower communions and the dark, quiet candlelight Christmas services. I also remember sitting in my 5th grade Sunday school class, bored out of my mind, with crayons and paper in front of us to keep our idle hands busy as the uninspired teacher read us Bible stories. Conversations with adults were more academic than religious, in my memory. We've come a long way since then, thanks to the UUA's curriculum and professional development and our own professionals here. I joined this church as a young adult 40 years ago, I think, like next month. I have a card to prove it. And it was a no-brainer. Maybe that's the problem. It was too easy. But I needed a community when I moved to this city. As the years went by, I realized that I also needed to figure out the spiritual piece for myself. Many of you here talk about why you left the religion of your childhood, and I had to figure out why I should stay. Up until this point, I wasn't comfortable with God language. I didn't know how to be a truly good friend with a Christian. I think I wondered why they would want me for a friend too. Then in time, something made me open and willing to listen to other religious sources that I wasn't open to before. I read the writings of Henry Nouwen, Anne Lamott, Pema Chodron, Gregory Boyle, the list goes on. When my first marriage was ending, I was grateful when my former boss said that she was praying for me. It meant something different to me. I received it as a gift. I also remember reciting the prayer of St. Francis, holding on to the beautiful words of forgiveness and light. I believe now that had I not been here, free of dogma and creed, I would not have been able to freely explore these new spiritual paths. I believe that I'm still sustained by the shift I made to an openness to other possibilities, that we don't have it all figured out. The mystery that surrounds us, I can call God, and the love that some call Christian. So when I accepted my role as adult programming coordinator, I was hoping that I could serve a community that I already valued, and that you all would give me much in return. What I didn't count on was that this deep learning we've undertaken together would first require us to get comfortable and then insist we be open and willing to further our learning in order to make deeper connections here and in the community. Now, my spiritual self, my heart, knows that I don't have a choice but to move forward. Because once you've gotten this far with what you know, there's no turning back. You can't unlearn the facts about systemic injustice. You can't unlearn the knowledge that people have been hurting for a very long time. UU Minister Kathleen McTeague says that any religion worth the name should help shift the behaviors toward the common greater good. So we articulate the meaning and practice of our faith through our actions that reveal and enact our core values. As I stepped out into the community this month to learn from various organizations about their work with immigrant and LGBTQ communities, I went with my empty cup. But I arrived grounded by my faith. I am grounded spiritually by this faith community in the knowledge that we are here as witnesses to each other's lives, in sickness and in health, laughing, crying, and learning together.
When I started as membership coordinator almost 4 years ago, I understood that I didn't really know what I was getting into. I was already an involved member of this congregation, a dedicated volunteer, and had recently served on our board of trustees. Still, I knew working here was going to be unlike any other experience I'd had. It felt like making a leap into the unknown. Unlike staff in many other congregations, I am still a pledging member. I continue to attend classes and activities, and I still participate in some small groups. I have friends here. But I had to let go of what my experience as a member used to be. The line between my work life and the rest of my life isn't always so clear. Before, I didn't need to consider that someone here or out in the community might take my words and actions as representing my workplace or religion. I had to let go of some of my anonymity. That question, "So what do you do for a living?" had never before led to me explaining Unitarian Universalism. I do like to tell people about it, but maybe not in every social situation. I used to be able to volunteer in my congregation without working. Now, that's really not a thing. I even had to give up my favorite volunteer role ever, advisor to our senior high youth. To be open to the new ideas and different ways of doing things that would be part of this job, and to serve the best way I can, I needed to let go of assumptions, ideas, and ways of communicating I'd learned other places. For instance, I've worked in places where we were all expected to say the same things and express the same opinions, or risk, at minimum, getting talked to about not being a team player. So I wouldn't say much and would try not to even consider if I thought what we were doing was right, because that would have really frustrated me. Here, I'm encouraged to share what I think and feel, as long as I do that respectfully. It surprised me to discover how uncomfortable that would be. Feeling like I had to suppress my perspective had gotten comfortable. Introverted, quiet, not so confident me had to let go of my tendency to hide in the corner and contribute nothing. Who knew I might sometimes have something to share? It's been such a gift for me to have this job that allows me to do work that is so meaningful to me. Had I refused to empty my cup of what I'd done and learned before, I wouldn't have had room to receive that gift.
Please remain seated. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Good morning. Tuesday morning of this week, we were greeted with the news of Silent Sam's demise. That the evening before, despite police protection that had cost UNC close to $400,000 over the past year, protesters had managed to pull Sam from his pedestal near the entrance to the campus. To paraphrase the epigraph for this morning's service, there are mornings when everything brims with promise, especially an empty pedestal. 50 years ago, almost to the day, I was a wide-eyed freshman, just beginning my tenure on that same campus. Somewhere along the way, I heard the schoolboys' myth about Silent Sam, the one about him and the virgins, and I knew he was a Confederate memorial, but that was about it. I knew nothing of his connection to the ugly resurgence of white supremacist movements in the decades after Reconstruction. Even when I graduated 4 years later, with an American Studies degree, no less, I was mostly ignorant of that chapter in our nation's history. As some of you know, I am interested in history. I have worked professionally as an architectural historian, and I'm interested in my own family history, which has deep roots here in North Carolina. Like many families, we've put our fair share of scoundrels on pedestals. During my journey as a historian, I've traveled a fair distance, toppling them over. Following the toppling of Silent Sam, the UNC Board of Governors chair and UNC system president issued a joint statement proclaiming the actions of the protesters unacceptable, dangerous, incomprehensible. One member of the Board of Governors has proclaimed, prematurely I can only hope, that Sam will be back on his perch within a few weeks. Clearly, some have a long way yet to travel. On the question of what to do about Confederate memorials, I confess I wavered. I wavered until I read Mayor Mitch Landrieu's justification for his decisive removal of 4 Civil War monuments from prominent locations around New Orleans in the spring of 2017. Mayor Landrieu reminds us that these monuments are like KKK crosses burning in someone's lawn, erected purposefully to send a strong message of subjugation, basically a terrorist message. To literally put the Confederacy on a pedestal in our most prominent places of honor, Landrieu says, is an inaccurate recitation of our past, it is an affront to our present, and it is a bad prescription for our future. I commend to you Landau's speech in its entirety. Most of our Civil War monuments were erected between 1890 and 1950, which coincides almost exactly with the Jim Crow era. The peak of the memorializing was between 1900 and 1920. For me, the face of that era is my maternal grandmother. I sometimes say I come from a matriarchal line, and for much of my life, the center of the family was this towering matriarch. No one among my ancestors has been more unassailably on a pedestal than she. I knew her as an ahead of her time progressive thinker. She was a suffragette. She was state president of the PTA and battled the state legislature for strong public schools in the 1920s. But she also glorified her father, my great-grandfather, specifically for his service to the great lost cause, and tended to view her slave-owning grandfather through rose-colored glasses as well. I don't know that she agitated for Civil War monuments, but she could well have. What does this mean to take ancestors off their pedestals, and how does one do it? Gently, in the case of this much-loved figure. Once done, we see them in their flawed humanity, and it's a truer picture. For me, this reassessment of history and of personal heroes is an emptying of my cup. It represents the necessity of removing obstacles to the relationship that I want to have with truth, obstacles to the relationships I want to have with people, obstacles to the partnerships that we may want to forge, and obstacles to the future that we all want to have.
We Give by Kristen Collins. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that, together, we have enough. We will now give and receive the offering.
Had you come into this space on the Sunday prior to the beginning of school, for the past number of years, you would have found a table here in the center, a large vessel placed on the table. And the vessel would be surrounded by cups of water. Some of you may have brought water here with you on those Sundays. And at a point in the service, we invited you forward, either to pour out a small portion of the water that you brought with you, or to take one of these cups and add it to the common vessel. We were ritualizing the intermingling of our lives, our choice to share from our personal resources in the name of the common good, to create together something that was greater even than the sum of our parts. This year, your professional and staff invites you to think about this day in a different way. In light of our focus for this summer, in light of our work together as a congregation, in light of the momentousness of these times. Placed throughout this room are tables with cups. But this time the cups have no water. They are empty cups. They symbolize opportunity. Opportunity for each of us to create space in our own lives. To create some form of emptiness, to let go of something that impedes us right now and that keeps us from making courageous connections. You see, the ritual today acknowledges completely that we need one another. The ritual today acknowledges completely that we're trying to build community together, to build, as we say in our new mission, loving community together. So the space you may need to create is a space in your life that would allow for a deeper connection here. The space you may need to create in your life may allow for a deeper connection beyond these walls. To go beyond these walls as a listener and a learner, not to share all of what you know and all of what you've done, but to step back, to decenter yourself, to hear deeply into the pain of this larger community, ways that we as a congregation might move forward in our work of justice. The space you may need to create in your life, the emptiness that you may need to foster in your cup, may have to do with a courageous relationship with yourself. To get out of your own way. To create space where you can become someone you've never had the courage to be yet. I invite you to find the space where cups are nearest to you, mindful that if you're in the back of the room, there are 3 tables behind you. And I invite us to move in deep silence to these spaces and take a cup. And return to your seat in silence, mindful of the now empty cup that you have before us, and reflecting deeply about your opportunity to create space in your own life, to empty your own cup, to commit to being open and willing to engage in the most courageous connections possible. Please move now in silence to claim your own empty cup.
I invite you now to become more aware of your breath, to be with me in meditation and in aspiration. To notice this cup you are holding, the slight weight of it, but weight nonetheless. Hold the edge between your fingers. Trace the rim. Measure the depth of the cup. Feel what is smooth, what is rough, what is textured. Notice yourself holding this empty cup. Open, bare, quiet, still. What would you empty? What within you needs clearing out? What would you pour out of self, out of the life you know? Clay is molded to make a pot, but it is where there is nothing that the usefulness of the clay pot lies. It is nothingness that lets us hold something new. It is space that invites possibility. May we be empty and brimming. Amen.